okay.
Mm.
And we have some
It's not okay at all. I had it written down, I just didn't look today in the calendar.
Is that a finger pointing? Just there, Ross. Worrell Creek.
Oh, Worrell Creek, Stuart. Fantastic. Let's go there.
I can already see the dynamics of this group. Stuart's kind of, he's well behaved. Ross is going to be the bad boy, and Angus is going to be the absentee.
Angus will send all his work to.
We all going to the same area?
Well, we've put in the timeline, we have put in an excursion to perhaps go out together, but this is more of a perspective sort of thing. You don't have to all paint the same place. You don't have to all paint together. If that's what you want to do. I mean, essentially, we like the idea, but we don't want to make things difficult or uncomfortable for you either. It's more just, we went there. We went there for information. We were inspired by the landscape. Do some sketching if you want to, take some photographs, have a chat. We could just drink more tea, whatever makes sense.
Yeah, okay, so that you'd prefer, say, I don't know, 3 of us together somewhere at some point? Or...
Yes, at one point we would like the 3 be together.
Why don't we do the bonding bit?
Yes.
And then take it from there?
Yes.
Perhaps on a rope halfway up a gorge or something.
Yeah.
The yellow hats, I really like those yellow hats. You got to knock things in as you go up, Gussie, so don't forget.
This is going to be a disaster.
It'd be worse than herding cats.
You could do a play on gorges and gorge.
There's nothing gorgeous.
We could have us all eating a lot of food.
Unless you confuse
Gorges at the gorge.
Unless you confuse gorgeous with gormless. I can do gormless.
Gormless is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, you need to go to Gara and Dangars. I mean, if we went to Gara and Gangars. Angus Nivison is definitely the best artist in Australia. Angus Nivison.
So we're going to go to Stuart's secret spot.
Okay, that's up here.
Wandering around with their trousers down because the belts. Have I got your drawing spot, Stuart?
No.
When I was doing the botanical gardens, I started drawing because it had to look like what it was. Yeah, it was like going back to art school.
Do not fall off the edge.
I'll make my own decisions, thank you, Rachel. Of course, and then you look down and you start to...
little pine trees?
The heavies a bit.
Well, it changes. The light.
Well, a spatial thing from across there, looking down here compared it to the bank here,
Yep.
once you see that, it's like, oh my God, I'm hanging on this dead tree.
You don't take it with you.
No. You know, half the things you make take you further away. But if you make enough, I guess over time you might know what you want to do, but you know what you don't want to do. But the beauty of coming out here today is the engagement is entirely different, and occasionally you dig up something that presents opportunities for you. Are you filming me eating a banana?
Yep.
Garra Gorge is just so accessible. And when I'm in Gorge Country, I'm always thinking of past lives. It just gets me thinking about First Nation people, you know, how do they use this area? You know, what they, you know, it's just there. I can feel the presence, and so there's always that. I guess the beauty and the emotion, and that's very much the thing McCann was always.
And I wonder if the optimism also comes from, even though COVID is still a major thing, I mean, also your previous work was very focused on the drought.
Yeah.
But now, even though there's this kind of situation where, you know, human beings are in a bit of a tough spot, the environment is coming back to
it's
life.
going huge.
Yeah.
And that's why I went back the next day and I thought, I'm going to do this in the rain. So they're all pretty much rain paintings. In fact, just about 90% of my work is to do with weather and rain. I'm obsessed. And so I hope they're a little bit more expansive than some of my earlier work.
Well, there's really immense depth in this sort of layering upon layering and these sort of multiple horizon lines in a sense as well. So you really get that sense of walking through a space, and it's quite interesting. My eye doesn't land on anything. It's just constantly moving around this space and trying to go deeper and deeper.
And when you're in the landscape, you're looking around and you hear a noise, you turn around to look. I mean, you don't just have that static front view, and that's why in here there could be headlands back in here. Now, what tells me that this is a pool and something and trees, but all of a sudden there's a distant view there.
Yeah.
Which where that was taken from was not possible. But that's the lovely thing about being not so literal, is you can do the impossible.
Yes.
You know, some of these have been repeated 10 or 15 times, and then it just builds up slowly. And that's why you've got that amazing depth through. One, it's the veil as well.
Yes.
But there's many, many layers. So the first thing that went on in this painting was gesso, which gives it that underlying movement. Because it wasn't all gesso, it was just So straight away, the first thing that was put on was also instantly constructing the painting.
So then you have some really interesting sort of textural elements that are a bit different that stand out. And you said that was because it was untreated canvas?
Yeah, there's a lot of raw canvas there. So that's areas like that would be where it grabs in a different way. So the nap is different there. Now whether I think that's just raw canvas and that's probably got gesso, but I don't know, I can't remember. And I'm loving the fact that it works from a distance and close up, and for me that's always really important, because once you capture a viewer, which you usually do from away, because if they don't like it they'll just keep walking, but if they, and then they come up And then when they come up, you have to reward them. So there has to be lovely little bits.
Yes.
And some of the ones in the studio are even more obvious, close up. They've got that idea of, not so much in this one, but diaphanous silk or veils or something. There's something, I don't know, soft. Tender.
Tenders, maybe.
The first work
Yes.
was very simple. The next one was a little bit more complicated and much shorter because I came from that. And then when I decided to do the big one, lots of different stuff happened.
Yeah.
The relationship of the red bits changed a lot. And I love the veils with that. Well, that sun shower thing, it's lovely. No rainbow, I should have put a rainbow in.
I love that. Just like a really little like kids rainbow with all the, it'll be great. So the circle has come back in, and that's something that
That's a
your
nice
previous body of work as well.
And it really, the circle really came out of when you put a pin in the paper, when you do a brush, it lifts the and leaves that.
Yeah, sure.
And I didn't have them in to begin with, and it just wasn't happening.
Yeah, I
and
like
then I
it.
went,
It somehow brings everything together, even though it's the...
And it's like the echo of that.
Mm.
And the only reason that came in, because I just needed something. And the circle was it, but it's got that lovely chance of maybe being the sun, but it's not really. So this is the biggest brush I use. I got this one in China, and I was so happy when I found it. It only lasted about a week. It started to fall apart, so I was in the middle of a painting, so I had to put all these bolts in to keep it together. You can do a very thin line, and then as you change the camber, you can do a thick line.
Yeah, great.
And you don't get, again, too many goes, because once you get too much paint on you, you lose all the lovely bits that are underneath, which tell another story and give it the atmosphere and all of that. So the hard part is, if you're dragging a colour down, to get down in one movement without stopping, because if you stop, you'll get a line.
Yes.
So that's just a technical thing. But and things like areas like that are just lovely close up. And again, that's that thing of finding something. I mean, that could be just a feather, couldn't it? Could be anything. It's lovely, and it's a different. It's sort of different. It's not as rough as. So
There's these sort of beautiful bits that are coming.
Yeah, and again, there's happy accidents.
And down there as well, that's really lovely. It's with the diagonal circle going there.
And that diagonal thing, it's really obvious in this one compared to the other ones.
The diagonal keeps your eye moving.
The stuff that sticks tends to be the essence.
Yeah, it's
of
not.
the
It's
landscape.
not a true representation of what you see.
No.
It's an expression
It's
of how
just
you
the
feel
relevant
within
stuff.
that space. Yeah.
It's just the stuff for me that makes that place special.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. I haven't seen you work to this scale.
Well,
previously.
I don't very often, but when the need arises, I work to that.
Are these based on one of the gorges that we visited?
Yeah, well, they're based on Dangar. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's all abstracted, but this is the hill in the background, same thing in the background, and then this other thing coming through here. And I usually leave a little bit of sky over the top, I guess. So you look over, and that's your landscape, and then this is all the foreground.
Yes.
Yep, and then try to imagine what the geology is.
And you were a geologist.
I was.
Yes.
I was trained as a geologist. And
is that why you're attracted to gorges? Obviously gorges is the theme of this exhibition, but you have done extensive work.
It's like doing a crosscut through the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
The gorges give you that without actually imagining it. It actually shows you what it is. So that's why I'm attracted to it.
Of course, it was very interesting walking with you because you were pointing out things.
Because the two areas that we went to, one was like a sedimentary area and one was an igneous area. And they're totally different rocks, totally different landforms. And they come from two different places. Yeah. I'm sort of hoping if somebody saw that painting and they'd been to Dangar Falls, that would invoke,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think
seen.
so. I mean, once again, I think particularly this one, there's almost a sense of vertigo for me. There is that feeling of being small in comparison and looking down, and there's something precarious about it, which is very much how I felt when I was there. So, what's your process of making?
Well, making is probably starting on one of these. On paper, it's more of a drawing to start with. Mm-hmm. These, you can probably see some drawing marks. That's a drawing mark. So I started with an outline with some sort of drawing. Can't see it underneath there.
Yeah.
Then I'll come in with and mix the paint on the actual canvas. So I'll put big lots of paint on there, and then I'll either come in with a big spatula or a big brush. These are obviously big brush strokes.
Beautiful.
Not much spatula work in there, but sometimes you get cut-in parts where it removes what's on the front while it's still wet, and you see through it.
Aha.
Using acrylic, you can do that in the space of an hour because it dries.
Yes.
Just trying to get the warmth. So the warmth in that one, and then the coolness in that one. Yeah.
Beautiful. And are these finished?
They're finished. These.
How do you know that you're finished?
Well, you look at it for probably a week or something after, or a few days, and if you can't add anything to it, it's finished.
It's done.
Yeah. I thought it needed something down the bottom, and I didn't know what to do, and I left this particular painting for quite a while, probably a week or so, and then I just put those two things in at the end, just to, I don't know,
give some balance.
Give some balance to what's up there, because that was just straight through there.
Yeah.
It was leading the eye out of the painting, I suppose. Then this was an attempt to just play around with colour, texture, time of day, structure, the whole thing.
Quite quick.
Very quick.
Yeah.
And then another one straight away. Yeah.
Do you refer back to these when you then go to make the larger works? Yeah.
It's also about getting things out of your head. It's all stored in there because you've been out in the field, and then you come back and you might get rid of the bad things, and then you've learned from what you've done in a subconscious way, and then you apply it into your painting.
But they're beautiful works in themselves. I mean, there's sort of immediacy, I suppose, because you're not so worried about it being a finished work. So there's a different emotional investment in it. So in some ways there can be a freedom or a playfulness, and it doesn't matter if it's all...
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that one over there is about distance and colour, warm tones, and it's about building up that depth. What you might use in the future, I don't know. Yeah.
So this is Blue Hole.
Yep. Which is totally different from different rock structure to Dangars. It's more of, and it's all about granite country, and so it's more rounded, more immediate, I suppose, because we're actually out on it.
Yes, there's a very different relationship between the body and the viewpoint.
And there was water there right next to you, so this is called Blue Hole. I think it's called Blue Hole Reflections or something. So I've tried to, and then you have the sort of sweeping trees that come up over the top of you, and the feeling of running water, I suppose, and the blue and greyness of the granite. Because the paper is more absorbent, the paint gets absorbed straight away, and then I can cut straight into it, whereas on canvas I have to wait for a while for it to sort of half dry, but I can get that sort of effect straight away, and this cutting in effect. And then this was probably very quick, as in I took the paint off the paper as I put it on.
Sure. And you managed to get some quite interesting build-up of texture.
Yeah, and once again the paint's applied onto the paper to start with. It's not mixed or anything, it's mixed on the paper.
And there's depth that you kind of create with the texture that you use in the painting over and scraping back is really lovely.
The depth, the landscape is about the depth.
So the start of our process was to take an excursion out to Blue Hole and Dangars Fall to make some preliminary drawings, and then you've gone back and done your own drawing. Can you take us through that process? Because this isn't Dangars or Blue Hole.
Well, Blue Hole, Dangars, both really interesting places. But a motif to hang your hat on, I don't find a particular thing there, whereas the Apsley Gorge, especially if you go right around it, has that sort of funnel-shaped drop, so there's a big image there. And so I was interested in that, and once I sort of did some work in each location around there, it's just probably getting the bones. And you can see around here, you know, where there's this sort of stuff going on, that's sort of in each picture.
Yes.
And so I was really getting involved in that more than I was the big slate wall or... so it was just feeling my way through and trying to find out what I thought my priorities were. You see quite well when you've got an implement in your hand and you're trying to describe it, you've actually got to really look at what it's doing and how it relates to everything around it. You know, it's like figure drawing really, it's a similar kind of experience. And just trying to, you know, make the marks and just get your hand on the paper and get a feel for it and be there for a while. The paintings sort of started like the drawings because I thought that's really what I wanted to do. So I was describing, you know, in a similar way and with an array of physical, you know, mark-making language. The fact of the world can get in the way of the painting of it, for me. It may look like the place, but it doesn't have any of the sensation of being in the place. I'm more interested in the sensations of being in the place. So I'm trying to get something that feels like the experience for me of being there. If the painting's wet, I can go into it while it's wet, but once it sort of skins up a bit, then I have to scrape that off. It's pretty sticky underneath that, which is beautiful to paint on, so most of my pictures have more than one attempt. And I made these big sort of orange walls with these big strong marks, and they were much stronger paintings, and I was much happier with them.
You have the, you know, the expansive space, but also for me this is more of, you know, those rock formations, those kind of things.
Distant hills are in there a little bit.
Absolutely, but you also do, you know, for me then I do also come back to the fact that, you know, it is a painting, it's about the gesture and the colour and the texture and the interaction of those things start to take over what I become interested in when looking at the work as well. Yeah. How do you approach colour choice? Do you sort of select a base palette that you think you're going to work with, or is it kind of organic as you go?
Yeah, it's a bit like that. I'm up for any sort of colour thing, but generally I start with too much. And it sort of gets a bit too decorative. I think that's a problem. So I try and pare it down, and that often means picking a colour that's working the best and putting more of it in and painting stuff out with it. And so there's a lot of reduction goes on.
It's quite interesting though when you have a pared back palette, when you do have this moment of an unexpected colour, it becomes quite important to the eye, like this little moment of green down the bottom here.
It was stuck on.
Oh.
Fraudulently stuck on.
Oh dear.
No, I think there was a little bit at the bottom left over from what it had been, and I just took it up a bit higher over the orange. But it's important because it's like a key to that whole area.
Absolutely.
So the beauty of repainting is you get left opportunities of things sticking through. So you scrape something out and you leave a bit, and then you paint around that. If it doesn't work, you get rid of it. But occasionally chance elements like that, you know, like even that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are really important, and you wouldn't have done that otherwise.
What do you paint with?
Mostly brushes that bend. So you know, they hold paint. They bend because I'm painting wet on wet. So I want to be able to slide it across the surface. And I mix my paint up in, you know, bowls or tins, and I make Daymar varnish and oil, so it's sticky and flows. It's got a flow, so it's a bit like you know, house paint almost in its flow. And then I use, you know, an array of scrapers and palette knives. Take the paint off. Generally, if I'm going to change a colour, I just scrape that off and I put something else there. You have to be brave enough to try things because you aren't going to die. You're just going to live to paint another day. And if you don't have that preparedness to lose things that look okay. You'll never get anything that looks better than okay. And okay often just isn't quite enough.
No.
So, and okay is often something that falls in the realm of the known, and I'm more interested in the realms of the unknown.
I think it's going to be an amazingly beautiful show. Really, really interesting.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what the other fellows have done, and you know, I'm of course worried that they might have sneaked in and stolen all my really good ideas. They were doing that so much out on the drawing trip.
Yeah.
What's interesting from a painter's point of view is to see the other ways they saw it. You know, that's what I'm always interested in about what other people are doing, is someone else's take. Because as much as we may all be confronted with the same information, none of us are seeing the same thing.
Of course.
And the beauty of it is you get to see the world in ways that weren't part of your vision originally, which is very interesting. So yeah, I mean, it'll be good, we'll see.
We will see.